Hey, everybody. Happy Halloween and welcome to Girls Who Print Wicked Women Rule the World. Kelly, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. And once again, we'd like to welcome everybody to Ghouls Who Print, Wicked Women Rule the World. Little housekeeping. We are going to ask everybody to keep their cameras off and their microphones muted while we go through this discussion, but we will at the end invite everybody to come on camera and have a discussion off the recording. But Deborah and I talked about this earlier this year and talked about how fun it was that Friday was a Halloween, and I'm the wicked obsessed one of the pair of us. And Deborah has come around quite a bit, and I'm sure you will say, is coming around to the idea of loving Wicked, which my relationship with Wicked goes way back to when I first read the book 20 something years ago and did see it live a couple of times in Chicago and did see the movie 3 times in the theater, people. So that's my level of obsession. I already have my tickets to part 2 for good, which comes out on the 20th of November. So if you want to get your tickets in advance, you should do that, because where I live, a lot of those early showings are already sold out. So we did think about all of the complexity of these characters and frame this discussion around what we can learn about leadership and authenticity and things like that, um, through the lens of Wicked. And so the first thing we're going to talk about, Deborah, is the idea of defying gravity. And this is really about Elphaba being a very unapologetic kind of character who is vastly misunderstood, right? I think we all understand kind of what that feels like. But really, for me, and Deb, you can kind of tell me what your thoughts are about this, but this is really about not playing small, right? She very much recognizes that she's very different, but she is not going to be apologetic about it. She's going to take up space. She's going to, be where she is in a very sturdy way. Um, Even though, for those of you that saw the movie or know the show, she did not belong at Shiz, right? No one wanted her there. Her father didn't want her to go. Her sister didn't want her there. The teachers didn't want her there. But she decided she was going to take up space, take the opportunity, because she was searching for her heart's desire, which was to feel like she belonged, right? Because belonging is so important. So, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Or differently than you
Oh,
did.
good. Okay.
I saw it as that she was afraid of her power and other people were afraid of her power. So, when she would get upset and things would happen and everybody was scared of her, I didn't feel like she was proud of it. I think that she didn't, let me use this hand instead. She didn't understand her power, and she consistently said, "I don't know how I'm doing it." So I think it scared her and it scared other people. So that is why she didn't, her power was actually recognized by other people, by the headmaster woman. I don't know her name. Kelly insists I love this movie, but I moved from loathe to like. So I don't remember the mistress's name there, but she recognized her power, and then of course the students and Galinda at that point recognized her power, but she she made herself small, I think, about it because it was scary to everybody, and then that made her an outcast, and she couldn't control it, so, really, everything was happening to her until she sort of understood that, it was within her, whatever the proper wickedism is for that.
I see that. And I think it's really important that we don't always agree on everything, or that we see different perspectives, right? Because um also, I think there's just a space here about thinking that this space was not made for her, right? And so when we think about going out into the world and thinking like the world wasn't made for us, business wasn't made for us, these spaces weren't made for us, it's time for us to disagree with that and kind of claim. We talk about this all the time, right? Claiming our space, claiming our voice, things like that. So this, I think, is such an important element, you know, the power of authenticity. And this is really being comfortable with speaking our truth and speaking truth to power, even in the face, again, of people who disagree with us or people who say, you can't do that, or, well, we've never done that before, you know, that kind of thing. Again, it's, to me, there's also such a part about this that's about not about authenticity, but about the language that we use, right? And when we think about being unapologetic in our leadership or unapologetic in taking up space, it is because sometimes we find ourselves saying like, I'm sorry, maybe this is a dumb idea, or oh, well, or we don't speak at all, right? When we're sitting at it, when we're sitting in a room and we think about it after the fact. So, you know, the idea of connecting to that which is real and true about us and knowing that where we are headed is where we are meant to be headed and that we are not going to let people derail us for that is really a lot of what I thought about when I thought about what it means to step into authenticity, even in the face of perhaps being misunderstood the way Elphaba was. But what are your thoughts on this element?
I really can only relate it to myself in because I will never forget when I used to do the booth in Graph Expo called the Printerverse, and I had all the aliens there, and there was a very big PR person who came over who worked for a very big company and said, "Hi, we we want to work with you, but you need to get rid of the aliens because it's, we're as serious. We are so serious and we can't be associated with that." And I was like, "Have a nice day." Like I why would I change everything about my authentic goal to have a little fun even in serious things? Why would I take away something that gets noticed before anything else? Like, why would I do that just to appease you? And I didn't say this out loud, but what I'm saying is that there were probably other times that I might have considered it if I hadn't, if it was early on. Or we can talk about the Girls Who Print logo for in this thing, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
the Girls Who Print logo originally had the power fist in it, and it made sense to me because it was about empowerment. But as the organization grew and we started branching out worldwide, we started learning that that symbol of the fist means different things in different countries. And in some countries, it means like a fascist movement. So even though authentically we didn't, aim for that to be the symbolism of the fist, it was obvious that we needed to change it. So um that there are some times when you do have to shift out of what you want, you know what I'm saying, and still be authentic but rolling with the changes. So when we change the logo from the fist, which is singular, like one person's empowerment, we use the CMYK circles which overlap to symbolize that it's all of us and we're all together in this now. It's still authentic, but it's different.
Well, and I think it speaks to the nuance, right? That it's about flexible thinking, it's about receiving new information, it's about taking in feedback as a part of a consideration, but not necessarily always letting it derail what your plan was and where you were headed. I had a similar situation in early days of roller derby when my best friend and I started a roller derby league. We used to joke that what always happened in public spaces was guys coming at us going, "What you need to do is," right? And again, this was 20 years ago, so I didn't have the same level of kind of confidence and boundary setting. So what I now, if I could go back in time, would say, thank you for that information, right? So we take in sometimes, and maybe we make adjustments a little bit here and there, but we cannot make other people's voices, other people's agendas, and other people's thoughts and feelings completely derail us. And I know there's a big through line for that with everything to do with the narrative and the story of Wicked. So this, I think, is a really fun concept to talk about what different kinds of leadership styles there are. And so traditionally, when we frame this around Wicked, it's that Elphaba, her leadership and her presence and how she takes up space is convicted, and it's very it's a very strong sense of belief, whereas Glinda is very much about charm and popularity and consensus and really, if you've seen the movie, you know she is very, very accustomed to getting her way everywhere she goes. So the minute she comes across like, I didn't get my way, I need to lie down, right? But a fun little exercise I thought we could do here is to talk about how many different kinds of kind of core leadership styles there are. And I'm just going to throw out a couple, Deb, and if any of these resonate with you, or if you think of any other ones, we can certainly address that. But there are folks who center themselves around transformational leadership, right? Constantly seeking to evolve, constantly seeking to involve others and really take organizations and transform them. That's why you sometimes hear companies who you think are doing one thing in the world call themselves, no, 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 we're a technology company, right? Or we're a service-based organization, when you're like, oh, I didn't really see it that way, right? There's also people who center their leadership through empathy, right? They're very concerned with how others are moving through the world. And I think it's also important to remember that it doesn't have to be just one thing. It's almost like we get to choose a menu of the different ways that we want to center our leadership or how we move through the world. So you could talk about things like collaborative leadership, servant-based leadership, which I bristled against a little bit, but then Deborah, there's a lot of things I think about you and I and how we work with Girls Who Print, that we are very much, this is a service-based, servant-based leadership, because we are very invested in others, right? In thinking about the information, resources, experiences that we bring to our community. So I don't know, again, I have a much longer list. We don't need to necessarily go through all of them, but I didn't know if there was any other types of leadership that kind of resonate with you, or if you wanted to add any thoughts to that.
I see it as two styles of leadership and only two styles of leadership. There's fear-based leadership and there's love-based leadership. And all of the positive steps of moving forward with everybody is based in love leadership. Fear-based leadership is, I'm going to lose my job, so I'm making everybody crazy. Like, you're not doing what I told you to do, therefore you don't respect me. Like, all of those things that um come up in the feelings that are not, this is good for all of us, this is good for the team, this is good for the company. It doesn't matter that it's not good for me right now, it'll be good for me in the long run and I want to participate in it. So versus, oh, it's just more work for me to do and this doesn't mean anything to me. So that's it. And it's a feeling. So if you know, if it's you, if you're the person who's leading, then you're leading from one of those positions, and you always want to be leading from the love side of things, which will get people on board with you. If you stay in the fear-based lane, then that is the environment you're going to create. And I can tell you, as someone who's managed up to 40 people, you do not want people who fear for their jobs working with you, because they shut down. They don't, I don't want to rattle any cages. I want to do exactly what I'm told. I'm not going to give somebody a new idea. I don't want to get shot down. This is not my time to talk. And I mean, especially in an advertising agency, you need it to be a collaborative relationship. So That's my thoughts on that.
That is absolutely fascinating to me because I don't think I ever really thought about it that way. But what you're also describing is also the core tenets of motivation, right? There's either carrots and sticks. So you're basically saying love leadership is the carrot, the positivity, the good things happen when these good things happen versus stick mentality, which is fear. And that actually manifests in pain avoidance, right? I am going to just do whatever it is that I have to do to not be punished or experience fear. So that is a really, really fascinating through line, I think, between the leadership styles and motivation, because really, what is one of the biggest things leaders need to do is motivate people. And there's also purpose driven, relationship driven, democratic, everybody gets a voice, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different ways.
Fear-based has its moments though, because your performance is a fear-based thing. It could also be a love-based thing, but mostly people take that on as a fear-based thing.
Yeah, it's so true. That is really fantastic. So, the reclaiming, this is certainly not the first time that we've talked and used the word reclaiming when we talk about getting women on stages, getting women, contributing content, being asked to contribute in whatever ways that there are. But this, really is about, again, the language of redefining. It is, again, taking back the words like we talk about all the time. For example, I never refer to my daughters, even when they were toddlers, as bossy, right? There was a lot of language that people have typically used to describe women that are actually negative, even though we want to try to pretend like they're positive things, right? So we still want to embrace the idea of whatever that behavior was that we saw as bossy and reframe it as assertive, right? And again, the awareness of the language so that we are not demeaning ourselves in the process, that we are not undermining our own authority and our own confidence and our own knowing that we have a right to be where we are. So it is, again, it's that I still, Deb, catch myself doing it all the time. Maybe this is a dumb question. I can't, it's so hard to unwind from. It's a lifetime of growing up with and living with that concept that is, it's difficult. It's like a constant awareness. And it's sort of like I've been trying so hard to stop using the phrase you guys to refer to a collective of people and say you all or folks. It's habit and it's very, very deeply embedded. Um, and we need those traits. We need that assertiveness. We need that reframe to drive progress. So we all have to, do our best to get on board with thinking about these things and that self-referential and the language that we use and being more intentional about it. What do you think? You got anything to add?
Of course,
Yeah,
words have power for sure, but only if the person receiving them chooses to accept that what it is. So, for example, we talk about reclaiming wicked women. I've had to reclaim the name girls because I cannot even tell you how much. Um, it's usually gentlemen, by the way, who have a problem with girls who print, and um, and it's just the word girls, and I often say to them, why do you have a problem with it? And it's because of all the baggage they have of it. Like the girl does that, ask the girl to take the notes. The girl will get the coffee. I still hear it today from print shop owners who say, oh, we have a girl who does that. And it could be the digital press operator, but it's still the girl who does that. So, you know, girl power, girls' night out, the girls' club. Like, girl is what we say it is, or that's
right.
the way I feel about it. So I try to help people understand that the reason why they have a problem with the word girl is because they have a problem with the word girl. It's not my
Yeah.
problem. It's not my problem because they have a problem.
Well, and that's a really good segue into this, right? Which is even the best laid plans, right? The most sturdy, solid, vision and way forward can still meet with resistance. And this really dials into what you just said, which is defensiveness, thinking about wanting to preserve the status quo. I mean, obviously, our mission to empower women and put more women on stages and get more women speaking and keynotes and on magazine covers and all of that is, there aren't a lot of people that would raise their hands and say, we oppose that. We do not want that. And yet there is still resistance to it because you need only look at the speaking list or, the schedule of any event, and it largely is still male, right? So again, we go back to those statistics about being, some number around 50% of the workforce and some number around 30% of the leadership positions, which tells us that today, to your point about what you said about the things you are still seeing in 2025, can confirm, because not only are you experiencing it and I'm experiencing it, but so are the interns, right? I just mentored a whole crop of interns this summer and they were telling me some of the same exact thing. So when, again, trying to connect this back to, Elphaba, it is, what do we do when we experience backlash, or when we experience criticism, or when we are confronted with, well, why is this necessary? Or even every once in a while we get it happened to me earlier this year, well, what about the boys who print? That one, it's like, what, knowing what's on the menu, knowing that this stuff is coming and being prepared to talk about it, I think is really important. But again, it is that confidence, right? I find myself like sitting up straighter, not, kind of throwing my shoulders back to anchor myself in the assuredness that what we are doing is important work. And that goes for you and I for sure, but it's every woman in a position of leadership who is advocating to change the hiring practices or make sure that the visibility is something that can be seen, I guess. I mean, that's a little bit repetitive, but that progress is being made, that changes are being made. And again, that goes back to being open to it, being able to receive new information and decide that that is the right thing to do. So it's kind of almost pushing through that pushback and saying, I'm gonna go forward anyway, right? And we're gonna see that a lot more in the second part of the movie, which I can't wait for you to see. Um, so yeah, I will let you kind of chime in, see if there's anything else you want to add to that.
The resistance part to me is defined by what is the ultimate goal.
Okay.
So if your ultimate goal is just to get your way, then I don't think that that is a pure motivation there, right? So if your ultimate goal is to, like ours is to help women in the industry and understand, especially in the United States, that there is problems with wanting to help women in the industry. And I had to make a conscious decision to take words like inclusivity off the website. Because in this case, meeting resistance over a word could stop the mission. Instead of saying, okay, instead of inclusivity, I can say industry. I can say everybody. We know what we mean, and which is the most important thing. Our program won't change, but we just won't use the trigger words that make people, corporations with money, nervous that they're sponsoring some DEI thing, right?
Mm.
So good always meets resistance, but it depends upon what your end goal is. So sometimes you have to adjust without compromising your mission when you meet resistance. It has to be calculated to the ultimate goal of what is being resisted.
Yeah, it sounds like strategic compromise when it is called for is what it feels like to me. So that's fantastic. So this I want to talk about this for a second because again, on my 9-3 watching of Wicked yesterday, there is quite a bit of envy and jealousy, right? In fact, you could almost frame it that the conflict between Elphaba and Glinda is it's a little bit about Fiyero, but it's not only about him, right? It's kind of like this archetypal kind of sensibility. So the idea that we have to make room for these things, right? That there is a phenomenon that some women get through the door and slam it behind them, right? And then everyone can say, look, the problem is solved. We have a woman, right? The opposite of that, or another way of looking at that, is that we have a responsibility, to bring other women along and not say that it's ever solved, right? That let's just keep going. One is not enough, two is not enough. And we've had discussions about this on other calls, but just the idea that we do have to recognize that emotions are normal, right? And if we do um, have feel threat. I mean, I guess the way I would look at it is like if you feel threatened by someone or you feel like you don't want to lend a hand because you worry that someone is going to swoop in and take something away from you. Deb, that goes back to your original talk about framing everything around love, which is also to say love and fear, scarcity, abundance, right? Like in a world where we feel abundant, we would think that there's room for everybody. But again, I think it is just about no emotions are wrong. If you feel the jealousy, feel the jealousy. If you feel the envy, feel the envy. But it's not an easy situation. And again, I would say that there is a very big through line in the story about this. Um, but it would be better for all of us if we didn't treat each other like enemies or act as if we were threatened by other women, but that we celebrated any promotion anytime anybody advances. um but I'm sure you have something. I know you have a lot to add to that, so.
Well, it you can't just say turn off your emotions. I
Right.
agree with that. So, if you're upset that somebody got a promotion, if you feel jaded that somebody got a promotion, I'm just using that as an example. Yes, you're allowed to feel that. What I would suggest is that you don't, under any circumstances, act on it. That you can have all those thoughts in your head as you're smiling and congratulating somebody, which is what I do all the time when I see, um, people, not people, gentlemen in the industry just having every door opened for them, doing a lot of the same things I do, but just come right in, and do this. And yes, I'm extremely resentful about it, and I know what's going on there. But do I want to work with these people for, what I'm saying? So you feel it, and then what I do is use it as fuel
Mm.
to make myself more valuable than anybody else, so that if they want that thing, the option is not um who, but what they're going to get.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's why we spend so much time talking about career trajectory too, right? It's like we are essentially saying, how did you do that, right? Like we want to know if you see somebody get promoted, tell me everything. Like I want to understand what that path was like. And again, I when you talk about millennials and you talk about Gen Z, the experience I've had with them is that they have a more intentional idea about, oh, I want to be a chief operating officer. I need to go get budget experience. I need to go get financial acumen, something I will just admit I lack, right? So the idea, and again, I was just on a college campus over the weekend and talking to seniors who I want a job in PR in the finance industry. They are at 21 years old. And I'm going, that gentleman over there is a VP at one of the biggest real estate firms in the country. So let's talk about how you might network with him. not today in this moment, but in the future, right? So yes, it is that the solidarity piece, which is to help one another, to pull one another along, is also very important. So this, I think, when we talk about the journey of Elphaba going from outcast and being reviled and despised to being brought in, is the conversation tends to be being liked versus being respected, and let us all live in a world where both can be true, right? We don't have to choose between being liked or being the president of a company. We don't have to choose um, between being in the spotlight or having a normal life or anything like that, right? So again, there is a very big through line here about just recognizing the bias, right? Recognizing that when all of these microaggressions come, which they always will, it's like you said earlier, can you take the notes, Deborah? Kelly, can you go order the lunch? Even though we're all peers, right? In a world where I saw it at more than one company I worked at, the joy committee, right? The fun committee that would plan the quarterly events, all women, right? So the idea that um, we make a choice to be intentionally invisible sometimes. It's just, I'm just gonna mind my own business, keep my place, be quiet. Know this, that can limit your growth. It can limit your visibility. It can limit, and this is, we've talked about this before too. No one's coming to say you should get on a stage. You have to be the one to say, I am going to develop a talk track and get on a stage. I've talked to a lot of women about this recently who are very ambitious about public speaking and things like that. So again, no one's going to come and put you on a cover, on a stage, ask you to contribute a blog. This is about us anchoring in our, in our empowerment and saying, this is what I want, and now I'm going to go get it. And self promotion is not bragging, right? This is not about being audacious. I think about how I recognized you as an influencer, to your point, before that was even a thing. And I used to refer to you as a pundit, right? You were like the most visible. And there were a number of others, right? I kind of put Bill in that category. There are a number of people I put in that category of being very recognizable, very visible people in the print industry. Um,
Bill Farquinson, you should just
yeah, Bill. Yes, most definitely. Um, and but we also have to understand that there is a risk in that you have taken a tremendous amount of risks and exposed yourself in a lot of ways by being so visible, which can bring extra scrutiny, right? And that is something that we have to be prepared for and be armed against, I think, a little bit, which is again the confidence to almost be bulletproof. I saw a video today of Linda Carter when she was transforming, into Wonder Woman. It's like you have to be able to kind of knock out the criticism, knock out the nasty comments because we know they come, right? Um, so I'll let you add to that.
I I liken this to Sarah O'Hannison's presentation of the productivity parade, which is, are you being visible just to be visible so that people are like, oh, look, Deborah's working again. She's working so hard. She's sending emails at 11 o'clock. Look at her working and replying to all, versus being visible for the amazing contributions you make without having to toot your own horn every 5 minutes. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying do it in a manner that it comes across as, I'm going to let you know what I'm doing, because in the way that things work here, it seems that only, Ralph and his the biggest client in the office ever get any accolades, and about what's going on here. But actually, I brought in this much amount of business last week, and I got a new client. So maybe it's just sending an email thanking the team for their support in helping you land this new business, land this new client, and maybe say, bring in donuts tomorrow for everybody. That is a really different way of staying visible and tooting your own horn that needs to happen because no one else is going to do it for you, but not get thrown into the, oh God, she's talking about herself again category.
Right. And nicely nicely followed up by that concept is the idea of setbacks, right? We are going to face adversity, we are going to face challenges. And while it is certainly true that, you know, that which does not kill us makes us stronger, it is about how we take in that information and what learning happens. I could tell you, and I'm sure you can too, Deborah, so many stories of like early in my career, big mistakes that I made. And I wish again I had a wayback machine to go and look at my 27-year-old self and go, what did you learn and what will you do differently next time? Instead of just dissolving into a puddle because I never learned how to take criticism, right? I took every negative thing as like the world ending disaster that it wasn't. But to say that, you know, being able to own up to those mistakes and look straight in the face and say, I messed that up, right? Can actually make you more influential because back to the beginning about being authentic, telling the truth, being honest about your path, being, you know, real about the mistakes you've made and the experiences that you've had, that helps other people. And not only does it help other people, but it helps anytime I do that, it helps me too, because I'm processing through kind of that interrogation of why do you feel that way? Why do you think you made that decision? What would you do differently if you could do it differently next time? I think that that cycle to complete is very valuable and very important. And that is as both a leader and as someone who aspires to being a leader, is to continually learn the lessons, you know, from the difficulties. And I do, being public about it again, I think it adds credibility, it makes you more human, it makes you more authentic. And again, I think there's a lot more learning that can happen out in public and personally when you talk about this stuff, the difficulties and the adversity.
So, my philosophy is that things don't happen to you, you make them happen. You also, the only thing you control is how you react to them. So,
Mm.
you can take adversity as a, okay, let me, I'm not getting through. I need to learn how to get these people to hear me because whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm saying, however I'm coming across, it's not getting the result that I want. So what do I have to do in order to get the result that I want? So that is I'm not in those instances, I'm not transforming to conform to other people. I'm transforming because I want to get what I want with the least resistance possible. And a lot of times that comes from getting advice from people who have been through it before you, maybe people who are close to the person who's giving you a hard time about something. I have I have gone to people's wives before, and I've been like, "Look, I don't know." I mean, I friendly enough to do that, you know. But
Yeah.
I've gone. I was like, "Look, I'm not saying anything bad about your husband. I'm saying I'm having an issue communicating with him and I just want to understand like what is the secret sauce here, you know, for it. And it's usually
So
something
good.
very simple, you know, that they respond one way and they don't respond another way. Now, I could say he should just get over it and, you know, but I'm not going to get what I want if I do it that way. So if you're facing adversity, don't look outward, look inward and see how you can change that. I'm not saying don't react to it, but react to it in a way that doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater or the
Mhm.
nuclear option as it's been explained to me because I have a nuclear option. But I haven't had a nuclear option in like 5 years since the last one I had, which did not end up well when you just blow it all up because you're like, forget it, I'm done. There's adversity. screw you all, and that's the end of it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, adversity will change you one way or the other, right? It will, and so again, I'm choosing optimization, improve, continuous improvement. We talk about this, that we're both seekers, right? I want to be different tomorrow than I am today, regardless, so that those difficulties can make us stronger and better, and more empathetic, and all of it, right? So it is absolutely a mindset of how we think about this. And speaking of that, we talked a little bit earlier about the microaggressions that we all experience, being called bossy, being accused of, stepping out of our lanes and things like that. But the idea that we do have a role to play when we see something and doing something about it, right? So it's one thing that we talk about, and we've talked about this on several other sessions, is when you notice in a group meeting that Jim is always interrupting Emily, it is to stop Jim from interrupting Emily. Is to say, Jim, hold on, before you continue, it felt like Emily was still in the middle of saying something. So let's make sure she completes her thought, right? That kind of thing. I am absolutely guilty of not speaking up for a lot of my career, just thinking like I'm not supposed to do that. But it really is about recognizing. Another common one that we talk about a lot is somebody else taking credit for your idea and saying, yes, I remember when Deborah brought that up 3 weeks ago, we thought it was a good idea, right? It's to not let people off the hook for that stuff, right? They may not, and in the kindest, most magnanimous way, we can approach it by saying they might not be doing it on purpose. They might not know they're doing it. 25 years ago, I had a colleague, excuse me, tell me that I interrupted her. And if she wasn't even someone I knew, we were at a meeting of like a regional group. And she said, "You've interrupted me 3 times now." Speaking of what we just talked about before, that changed me. That awareness was like, I had no idea I was doing it. So that was a gift. She wasn't, it was very neutral. She wasn't overly kind or overly cruel about it, but it absolutely changed me. And I've been really trying ever since. It's a work in progress, right? To be different about that. But this is, other ways that we can challenge narratives are with resource groups. Girls Who Print is a good example of this, but these things can happen internally too. I've talked to a number of organizations who are starting internal groups for different interests, different kinds of people, different groups, right? So these are all ways that we can kind of challenge the status quo by recognizing differences, celebrating everyone's individuality, kind of collectively, if that doesn't sound silly. But again, mentorship is an incredible resource where this is concerned, as is building a strong network, which again are cornerstones of what we talk about on Girls Who Print, and offering free mentorship to all women all across the globe, and being an active part of a network. That's why we always say, oh, you're looking for somebody, put it on their LinkedIn page, right? We should be talking about these things. There should be no, I didn't, knowing what's going on is going to activate people to step in and help. And we're trying to do more of that with active presence on the LinkedIn group or in the forums on the membership platform, is all about, you are not doing this alone. Go
So
ahead.
I come at this a little differently. And I don't know why, but I mean, I don't know where it developed in me, is what I'm saying. But I just refuse to accept the narrative. I'm just like,
Mm.
no, that's not, that might be your world, but that's not my world. And you can't make me accept your reality if I'm in my reality.
Ooh.
Perception is reality. So
Mm.
it is about challenging the narrative, but not just leaving it there. It's challenging the narrative by having your own story and being confident in what that is. And you and I have spoken about this a few times, about being introduced places. This
Mm.
is where would be challenging the narrative. So, um, you know, we have, if you're a speaker, whoever you are, you should have your own introduction of how you want to be introduced, with as many of your accomplishments and as many of the things that you want to say about yourself in that. Whether it's 3 sentences or 3 paragraphs, it doesn't matter. You've earned that right to tell people who you are the way you want them to experience it. That's challenging the narrative, is when you're introduced and it's like, okay, they took something like 3 sentences out of my LinkedIn profile from a job 4 years ago and a picture from 10 years ago. And
Right.
now I'm going to have to get up here and reintroduce myself to everybody, because that is not who I want to be during this presentation, or during this whatever I'm doing, or in general. So challenging the narrative only works if you know your own story and you can stand strong in it and communicate it.
Oh, so good. And this is, I think, a really nice way to wrap this up. And in about 2 weeks, this is going to be on display. Deborah just put a hex on. We're all cursed now.
No,
Um,
it was a good magic.
I know, I know. I'm just kidding.
I'm not
That
bad
that was
yet.
a terrible choice of words. But in 2 weeks, this is when we celebrate, right? This is when we give out the awards, and it's not just the girly. It is. It's the Rising Star Award, which we have at least one Rising Star with us on the call today, Emily Simon,
Yay, Emily.
and the new Ally Award, which we will only be giving out for the second time. But this is the perfect opportunity to lift others up. I mean, I wish we could give awards all the time, because, it is recognizing the extraordinary contributions of individuals, whether they are in high school. We just got a notification about a high school student who won a big poster contest through the GCEA, right? That we want to amplify those things. We want to lift those people up and celebrate them, just like Tara and Mackenzie with their Talk More Print podcast out of Ferris State University. Shout out to them, celebrating all of the people that are doing the work and showing up, is so very important. Because yes, although again, if you haven't seen the movie, like, in the beginning, Glinda doesn't actually have any magic, right? She doesn't. There's the adorable scene where she's like trying to transform the frock into a ball gown. Um, Everybody is, has things to celebrate. They just might not recognize it in themselves. And so, again, as the leaders or the people who are in their legacy era, it is recognizing that which is special in other people and showing them if they don't see it for themselves, but also recognizing it in themselves too. So to your point about, how you're introduced, and I want to reiterate this: your accomplishments, voicing your own accomplishments, is not bragging. Right? It is not bragging to say, I won the girly and I've been on global stages. And right, like, that is not bragging. It is simply stating facts about all of the hard work that you have done, and being comfortable sitting in that place of, take the compliments, take the accolades, acknowledge, yes, thank you. Not, oh no, it was nothing. Right? It really is to stand firm and accept that, accept that which is positive, and say, yes, this is true. Because when we do that, we are also setting the example for others, right? I hope that is what I am doing for my daughters, all of my children, but I hope that is the example that I am setting when I talk to college kids, or when I work with people who are earlier on in their careers, that they can see by that example what is possible, but also understand that they are on their own path.
To me, celebrate your magic is not about other people necessarily. It's everything I've said today is about self, not others. So
Mm.
celebrate your magic to me is to give yourself the permission, and I say permission on purpose, to celebrate every little victory, whatever it is. Sometimes for me, it's I emptied my dishwasher. No, I'm serious.
I
It
hear
like
you.
sat
I'm
there for
so
2
with you.
days. It sat there for 2 days and now I don't have any forks, right? So
Yes.
now I have to do it, but it feels so good after I do it. And I'm allowed, instead of saying you're an idiot, you should have just if you would have emptied it 2 days ago, you would have a fork and you wouldn't have to do it now when you want to do something else. Instead of going down that rabbit hole of hell, to instead say, I emptied my dishwasher and I'm so happy now. Forget about what happened, how you got there. Celebrate the win that the dishwasher is empty. And I will leave it at that.
Thank you, everyone, for being here for Ghouls Who Print, Wicked Women Rule the World. Empower long and prosper, everybody.